Okay, this is a video response to Hythloday, my good friend. Just pointing that out because I'm about to disagree with a lot of stuff he says in this video, basically everything he says in this video. And I want to keep it friendly. I have a lot of respect for Hythloday. But it's okay, we'll get started.
That we are purpose machines. DNA has ensured us to have purposes as a sentient or unsentient organism.
Okay, so DNA has, I think later he'll say the word imposed purpose upon us, right? If I don't have enough food in me, I will feel hungry, and that's encoded in the DNA. But it's, of course, nature and nurture. Our environment has a lot to do with the choices we make on deciding who we are and what our purpose is. That's a big discussion, but it's not all in our DNA, for sure. There's going to be what he calls psychological purpose, which he'll get into a bit later.
That is, firstly, like in the Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs. First, we have the purpose to eat and keep warm and this kind of thing, and then we have the purposes of feeling safe and secure, having a home to defend us from animals and so on and so forth. And these, in that sense, are all predicated upon our biology.
No, not all of Maslow's needs are predicated on our biology. Maslow has this triangle, kind of pyramid-looking thing, and at the bottom of the triangle are these kind of biological needs, like food and shelter and this kind of stuff. And then up on the higher ends of the pyramid are the higher needs, that are the more the psychological needs, such that things like love and self-realization and this kind of stuff. And I pretty much reject Maslow. Basically, if you subscribe to what Maslow says, he basically says that you can't do these self-realization things until the lower needs are met, which would mean that someone that's starving couldn't say, "Oh God, why hast thou forsaken me?" That they'd be looking for food. Now, the more that these lower needs are met, the more time we have to spend on love and self-realization and this kind of stuff, but it's not predicated upon it, as far as I understand the word predicated.
As we're always given this purpose, imposed, there are certain imposed purposes on us which we can't get away from. And then there are psychological purposes. And every time, in the example Pyro says about, I want to build an extension on my house and I don't need it. Well, you had the idea.
Okay, so now Hythloday is making the distinction between biological needs and psychological needs. And this is a big part of the antinatalist argument. The asymmetry part of the antinatalist argument, where basically the antinatalist will say, things that are filling some biological need are just filling that need. It would be better if that need didn't exist in the first place. And then things beyond that aren't fulfilling a specific need, well, if there's no need, then there's no purpose. Therefore, it's just kind of superfluous happiness. And I would disagree with this. I would say that happiness beyond filling needs isn't superfluous, it's surplus. And that surplus happiness is the purpose.
Yeah, that you wanted to build it. Whatever it might be, because it's a social status symbol. But one thing is, you wanted to do it. And the second you have the want, until it is done, you are in some sort of deficit. So that's the purpose. Whatever it is, you're satiating the purpose.
Okay, so this part, what he was saying was that when you have a want, he says, then you have a deficit that that your want must be fulfilled, and so it's kind of a debt to yourself to fulfill that want. Now, this debt is a little bit different than other debts. When I go and pay my mortgage, for instance, it's not that fun. But when I fulfill a debt to myself of want, then I'm getting what I want. It is fun. So it's very different than what we would think of normally as debt. Now let's say I want something and I can't get it. Let's say I was driving by Piero's house and I was like, wow, that house is awesome, and it's unlikely I'll ever be able to afford such a place. Well, at least I'm no worse off than I was. You know, I still have my house is fine. You know, just because I don't have a bigger house doesn't mean I'm any worse off than my starting point. So it's all kind of a relative thing of I have some starting point of however good I am right now, and I could be better than that or I could be worse than that. It's all relative to where I am right now.
So in that sense, I'm more than happy to talk about only negative values. The point that I still want to stress.
Okay. So last week, Hythloday was talking about values, and he had a scale going along below him here, and he was putting cupcakes on the happy side of the scale, and nails on the sad side of the scale. It's that old cupcake versus nail in the eye argument. Now, here he's saying that there is no positive side of the scale because it's the psychological wants. And so we can never get above that 0 point. Now the thing is we can always be better off than we are right now. We can always be worse off than we are right now. If you give me a cupcake, I'm like, great. If you give me a second cupcake, I'm like, even better. Now, so there's no point of satiation, and it can be taken to ridiculous extremes because of trade. And trade is what makes this possible. Let's say my whole house was filled with cupcakes. My yard, it was filled with cupcakes up to the sky. And you came up to me and said, hey, want a cupcake? I would still take that cupcake because of trade. Because I could trade 100 cupcakes for a gold nugget. And then I could trade 1,000 cupcakes for 10 gold nuggets. So because of trade, more is always better. I can always be better off than I am right now. I could always be worse off than I am right now. If there was someone that was really suffering and I kicked them, then I could kick him again. I could just keep kicking this poor suffering child that's at the bottom of Omelas. So if there's no limit on happiness, then there's no such point that I can't go beyond. That would be a limit, right? If the limit is 0 and there's no limit, then I'll just go past 0. And that's why the asymmetry argument doesn't work. It's because there's no limit on being better off. You can always be more better off.
Is the non-intrinsic or absolute nature of those values.
Okay, so that part, this is what as I was trying to get to. He says, I admit to the 0 value scale idea, but it's not an intrinsic value, so therefore, what exactly? Now, he hasn't really finished this series yet, so I'm not sure where he's going to get to, but to me, it really seems it doesn't make any sense to be arguing that. Right, so like, if life subjectively sucks, it still sucks. Like if you said, hey, let's go see a movie. This movie is intrinsically bad. I'd say, well, maybe I don't really want to go see that movie. If you said, hey, let's go watch this movie, it's subjectively bad, you're not going to like it, I'd still say, I don't really want to go see that movie. Let's go see Mad Max instead. So I don't really know what the point is if the value is subjective or intrinsic. If it sucks, then I still wouldn't want to do it. But the thing is, life doesn't have to be perfect to be worthwhile. You're never going to have all your wants and desires met. That's okay. For me, the is-ought gap is breached by when the benefit is bigger than the cost. That's basically it. If the, it doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be better than it is bad. So that's pretty much what I have to say, and I look forward to any responses I might get on this. Again, thanks for your time, and thanks for your views.